All right, so Jake, welcome to the No Fiction Podcast, episode one, official. Um,
Thanks for having me.
yeah, man, it's been a while. It's been a while
Been
since I've been in
a
New
long
York. Been a while
time.
since I've seen you. So basically, the breakdown is we're just gonna I'm just gonna ask you just a couple basic questions like where you from and stuff like that. Where do you cut? How long have you been a barber? So as an introduction, we could start there. So I know where you're from. Why don't you tell the people where you're from?
So I'm from Long Island, New York. Grew up here. Um, Started cutting hair here. Moved around for a little bit, but now I'm back. So
Yeah, man. Arizona. Where else?
Florida,
Florida.
then all over.
So where are you working now?
So right now I'm in Blue Point. It's on the South Shore of Long Island. I've been cutting at this. It's a newer shop for me, but a little over a year now.
Nice, yeah.
Just at a year in May.
Yeah, I follow you guys. I follow the shop, follow you guys on Instagram. You guys are doing some cool stuff. Going to like local markets and stuff like that, cutting hair live.
Yeah, we've been doing like setting up pop-up shops
Yeah,
for events. So we did I'm sure you know it's called Live After Five in Patchogue, New York. So we
sure.
set up a pop-up shop there and pretty much just cut hair out on the street, meet the locals, kind of get, in with the community. And we've been
Nice.
doing a few other events like that.
Awesome. So do you like schedule clients through your booking to go there, or is it just like whoever comes gets a haircut?
No, so that's more of like first come, first serve basis. At these events, we normally do a wheel. It's like spin the wheel and there's all different cuts on the wheel. So if you're
Oh,
like
really?
willing to risk it, you get a free cut. So
Nice.
we'll do that. And that's fun. That gets people involved. And it's fun for us too. Like last time it landed on, I think we did like a mohawk and a high skin fade with a flat top. Like
So
on people that normally wouldn't get those haircuts unless they spun the wheel and got it. So
So they, all right. So just to get it straight, there's a wheel. Not everyone spins the wheel, but if they want to spin the wheel, they commit to getting whatever pops up,
okay.
right? Is that how it
Right.
works?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So going with the theme for right now, we also have a wheel and we spin the wheel of truth here, right? So but the basis of the no fiction podcast is like real stories, real barbershop stories. So things that, you know, we're gonna see what happens here, what the questions are. Obviously, I know the questions, but you don't. And we're kind of gonna just go through it. But before we get to that, so how long have you been a barber? How long you been cutting hair?
So I first started cutting hair. I was like 17. It was kind of just a hobby. So I consider that like my start. That was when I, started using a straight razor, started kind of messing around with more than just like the liners and lineups. So I've been cutting hair for it's going on 13 years now.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a quick background for anybody who doesn't know, which is probably everybody, that me and Jake got connected through a mutual friend. It was kind of cool how it worked out. So I opened the barbershop in New York and Long Island, in my hometown, Ronkonkoma. And this woman that I think she was friends with, she used to work with my girlfriend's mother in a bank. She does a lot of like community service and different types of programs where like they'll do entrepreneurship, they'll teach certain things like that. So she basically reached out to my girl's mom and was like, "Oh, I got this young guy. He's up and coming barber. He's been cutting hair for this amount of time." So that kind of introduced me and Jake. And then, right around that time, I was literally brand new in my shop. I think I was there for just a few weeks, had one barber trying to build it up. And yeah, he came in and we clicked right away. And it was just it was all good since then. It was a smooth transition. He kind of started part-time, like your typical barber that was just getting back into it, right? Because at the time you weren't really cutting that much. You were kind of cutting here and there.
No, I had been kind of like freelance. Like I never really worked in a shop. It was just kind of like mobile. It was a
Yeah.
side gig for me. So that was like the real like commit. And I actually was meeting with Barbara for like career development.
Okay.
So she was like, "Hey, I got this guy. He just opened a shop. I think you guys would hit it off." And that was the end of that.
Yeah, and that's when we met, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. Like I said, it's been a while, but let's get into this wheel to keep up with the theme here. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hit the. So this is how it goes. I'm gonna hit the button. It's gonna spin the wheel, and it's gonna ask you a random question, and then we'll kind of just vibe off that and share stories.
Cool.
I got a lot of stories, so
We got 13 years of stories.
yeah, 20 on my end, so it'll pop up. All right, so you kind of answered that, but like, can you elaborate a little more on, how you started cutting hair?
Yeah, are you want me to like go into my history a little bit or
Whatever, just however you started.
yeah, so I really started with like doing my own beard. So that was like as I, got a little bit older, like 13, 14, 15, I was growing significant facial hair and um I had to keep up with it. I couldn't go to the barber all the time. So that was I think for my 14th birthday or when I was 14 for Christmas, I asked my mom for a straight razor. I was like, I think it's time to start using a real razor. And I started doing like lineups on myself, obviously gashed myself up pretty good for a little bit. And then like my first friend trusted me to do a lineup on him. And that was like my first ever doing like a any type of service on anybody else. So I just kind of ran with that for a little bit. Um, I do pretty much just shape ups for most of my friends every once in a while, like a little low taper here and there. And then I kind of like, so I was ignorant to the whole barber industry. Like I didn't, in my view, it was like I guess like lower on the totem pole of jobs and pay. Like I didn't understand how much money was made. I didn't understand like how it was made. Um, so once I actually learned about that, I softened up to the idea of like, okay, like I could probably do this as a career. And I'm, was pretty good at it. Well, that's what people told me,
Yeah.
they kept coming back to me. So by the time before I had gotten to the shop with you, I probably had I don't know, maybe 20 like regular guys that would come and see me. And that was what year was that? When did you start your shop?
Oh man, it was
Right?
6 months before COVID, so whenever that
Like
was.
2019.
Yeah, it was.
COVID dropped beginning of 2020.
So I've been in Florida now 4 years, and I had it for two, so it was 6 years ago.
Yeah, so about 6 years. So in that 6 years, I've grown to not only love cutting hair because like I play with the idea of doing other stuff and changing careers because I've done this for quite a while. But just nothing else really kind of like I guess is me as much as this is.
Yeah.
Um so I mean in that 6 years I now have a clientele of just under 700 clients.
Oh yeah. I,
So and a
I probably
decent
gave you
amount of
about
that being
150 of
yours.
those, but yeah, when I moved from New York, I won't get into too much detail, but I didn't like the way things were going with my shop that I sold. So I said, Jake, man, you're gonna get all my people just because they're
Yeah.
asking for you. Like, they were looking around like, I don't know about this guy over here. And so I basically blasted the whole list and sent them your way.
Yeah, now I mean that was a blessing for me just in my business itself because that obviously, you can give me the clients, it's up to me to keep them, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
So I just did, I did a lot of listening. They told me how you cut their hair, and obviously I had seen it, a couple times. Um, so I wound up keeping a good amount. Like a lot of those clients stay with me, which is cool because, the history goes back further than me. it goes to you, and then when you started cutting them. So some of these clients are 10, 12, 15-year clients.
Yeah,
So that's really cool to keep that going.
yeah. Some of those guys I've been cutting since. I mean, they're grown up now. They're cops and stuff, and they've been
Yeah.
on the force for 5, 6, 7 years. And I cut them probably before high school. So, matter of fact, I don't know if you still cut Mike A. I'll call him for anonymity purposes, but he popped into my shop one day. He was here on vacation in Florida. I'm in Sarasota, and I was like, dude, I wish I had time to talk. It was like a Friday. I was running behind
Oh
already.
man,
So you don't you want to talk to your old clients and stuff, but I just couldn't do it. So yeah, we didn't end up like actually connecting that much, but I got to see him, and yeah,
that's
he's
awesome.
thinking about actually possibly moving here and switching it up a little bit. But
Oh, nice.
yeah, like the way that I started cutting hair is I dropped out of high school, and I literally had nothing to do, and I was like, wow, this was a big mistake. Like at least going to school, I had something to do. I was
Right.
whether I was in class or walking around the hallways or going to the bathroom, like, now I got nothing to do. I was sleeping late. And one of my buddies that was older than me, he was a year older than me, he graduated already, and he was working at a shop down in Farmanville. And I was already like hanging out there. So I was like, man, maybe I should start cutting hair. It looks like an easy job. These guys are like hanging out and, they make their own schedule and, every night they're cracking beers. And at the time, now I've been sober almost 16 years, but at the time I was far from sobriety. Let's just say that. And I was looking to party and work all in one. And as me and you both know, that only lasts for so long. So
Yep. Not long.
my lazy career turned into something that I could relate with what you were just talking about, where I was like, man, like I don't know if this is it for me. Like I feel like I could do more.
Right.
And then I would leave and then come back and leave. And I mean, I've given away my whole client list at least five, I would say on a conservative note, like 5 times where I completely stopped cutting hair. I went to go sell gold coins with a friend or tried to sell life insurance or moved to Florida, a few
Yep.
times in the past. And I would find my way back to Long Island eventually or back to cutting hair. And, it was just like, I don't know. I guess I had that lazy mentality and I
Yeah.
really wasn't willing to work for it. It just came to me naturally. I was good enough to where I could keep my clientele at least. So
Right.
that was a
Yeah.
plus. And then they would come back to me. So it was like I kind of had it made, but I didn't realize. And then I would say, yeah, so that's like I started cutting hair because honestly, I was lazy. I mean, obviously, I dropped out of high school, so there was an element of laziness there. So, but yeah, it was the
Yeah.
best thing that ever happened to me because it gave me something to do, and then I learned a skill that I could do anywhere. Obviously, I moved
Right.
to Florida. I started brand new from scratch. I climbed my way up, and now I'm in my own suite, and I'm doing really good. It didn't start that way when I was in Florida. A lot of ups and downs, but I've proven to myself over and over again that I could just restart a business, in cutting hair and gain clientele through word of mouth. And that's
Right.
zero advertising. And honestly, up until like today, my social media, I don't really participate that often other than scrolling. But I mean, that's changing. Obviously, with this comes more responsibility and more, things that I need to do to promote it. Uh,
Right.
so I'm going to remove that question. I'm going to hit that wheel again, and then we'll just,
I think everybody's had that, like, I don't want to do this anymore. What else can I do?
yeah. And it's like, why, so for me, it was always, I thought that, well, I knew that, all right. So by, what's the saying? The top five people, your top five influences in life are your top five friends, something along those lines, right? So the five
Right.
people you're around the most is who you're going to be like.
Right.
And to be honest, some of these shops I worked in, my top fives were like negative ones, dude. Like I worked
Yeah.
around,
Well, the barbershop collects all kinds.
yeah, like things could be going real smooth, and then all of a sudden you got one guy that throws a wrench in the whole plan, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's been times where I might have been that guy to also, to be honest, where my
Yeah.
mind wasn't there and I was trying to do this and that on top of cutting hair and I just was, kind of not wanting to be there. So I would imagine I would emit that energy also at some point. But on the other hand, it's like there was times where I was just like I would want to do anything but cut hair. But it wasn't the cutting hair because now I sit back and I look at where I'm at now, and it's like I'll probably never give this up, even if I have something else, because I make my own schedule. Number one, I have my own space that I control 100%. Like I just stopped taking new kid clients. I think I told you that we were chatting the other day.
Oh, I've been talking about that.
And not I'm not to say that that's what everyone needs to do. I don't
Right.
believe that. I think there's a strong business model in cutting everybody. But where I'm at now is like my clientele is a lot of business people and a lot of entrepreneurs. And I realize that if I'm gonna do what I really want to do, I want to be around certain people.
Right.
Now, if those guys have kids, I'm going to cut them. But anyone that calls in random or someone wants to send me their, grandson that I go to church with, I just tell them politely, I said, "Oh, I'm only doing haircuts for 18 and older. I don't cut kids." And I
Right.
just started doing that and I just literally got comfortable with it. This guy yesterday like was all thrown off. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, listen, I like apologized to him at first because I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
it's just not what I want to do. And if I'm going to be happy in my life, I need to create my boundaries and I need to create my rules and I need to build my business the way I want to do it, you know?
Right.
So that's where I'm at. But did you break down your first haircut ever?
Yeah, it was just like real quick. It was one of my boys. I did, like a shape up. I would do is like his line up here and there. Um, but I would say like my first real haircut, who was that? Probably like, I mean, it's always like a friend, usually somebody that, lets you do it.
Yeah. I remember I shaved my boy's head in my mom's backyard with a pair of like rusty like corded clippers that had no slide on it. That was just
Oh
like
yeah.
could only do one length and
Yep.
it didn't have a clip. And it was like midsummer in New York, and there was a bee's nest right near us. And I'm shaving this kid's head, and the hair's like getting stuck and clumped up. And I'm like, the guard is like going into his hair follicles, and it's like getting stuck, or the blade.
Oh yeah.
And this kid's like bleeding a little bit and sweating, and it's just the hair is not coming, excuse me, it's not
Oh
coming off.
man.
It's just like all clumpy. And we finished it. Well, I finished it. And it was that's when I said, I'm like, dude, I will never do this again.
Let's say you learned a lot that day.
Yeah, but I also said that I swore it off. I'm like, I'm never gonna cut anyone's hair again. And then here I
Yeah.
am. I don't even know. That was like a long time before I even started cutting hair for real, but probably 25, 30 years ago.
Damn.
Makes me feel old saying that. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, I probably had, so we had at my buddy's house, like we would hang out in the basement and that was like the spot. Like out, they had a spot out in the garage and then in the basement was where like you went and got your hair cut from my buddy's brother. So I slowly like kind of shifted from like hanging out with my buddy and like my friends to like hanging out downstairs where the haircuts were happening. And like, we'd watch movies and be like a mini shop vibe kind of going on with him cutting hair in the middle of the room. And that slowly turned into like, oh, I'm kind of interested. I do, a couple of my boys' shape ups. And then he kind of taught me what he knew, which was like mainly fades. He didn't like use scissors or anything. He was like a classic, like old school, barber, just clippers. Um, and then slowly he would let me like his clients were like, oh, he could practice on me. And that's kind of how that started with
Oh,
me like
nice.
actually cutting other people. Yeah, I had like I had my group of friends and I still cut some of them to this day. A few of them are bald now, but um
As long as you didn't cause that, it's all good, right?
wasn't me. Was not me.
Genetics. Say it's genetics. That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah, that's how it started. Basement haircuts.
yeah. Like I said, I just told you how it happened for me. So, all right, we got what's this, the third one? All right. What is your craziest barbershop story?
Yeah, someone I saw I would like because we like kind of talked about that a little bit, I think yesterday or whenever we spoke about doing this, and I was like, oh, I gotta think of like a what's the craziest story? And like there's a lot. There's a lot. So one for a while it was like one that blew me away was when me and you were working together.
Oh, the guy
Remember the
when he's
guy that came
triple
in, he asked for a
zero.
000? Yep. And then he
Oh,
walked
man.
out mid haircut and
Acting
like
like he was on the phone. He's like, I gotta go.
unexplained. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said I had just put in a skin line like all the way around, and I
Um,
think I did like an open one, and like that was it on one side, the whole skin line all the way around. And he
yeah.
said, I have to take a phone call. I was like, all right, go ahead. He's like, outside. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. He's like, can you take the cape off? I was
Yep.
like, okay, a little
That,
weird,
bro.
a little
And from
weird,
my
right? So I
angle,
took the
that's
cape
exactly
off,
what happened.
never saw him again.
Before that, though, he was like fidgeting in the chair and he was like, he kept rubbing his head like
He
this
kept feeling it. He's
and he
like,
kept feeling it and rubbing it. I'm like, what's wrong with this guy? Doesn't he know how to get a haircut? And I heard him say 000. And then you even checked it. You said, so skin, right? He said,
yep,
yeah, 000. He said 000. In barber world, when you say a 000, that actually sounds like you know what you're talking about, right?
yep.
Because that's the Oster guards,
The
right?
Oster, the
Metal
metal
clips.
clips.
So he
Yep.
means he wants a 000, which is bald. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, dude, that
Yeah, I think about that one a lot because me being like earlier on in my career, like I didn't know if I was doing something wrong. I was like, I don't have a 000. I had explained to him like that's not really my clip set. I said, but like in my head, it was like, all right, there's a 0 with the clipper,
yeah.
there's a 0 with the trimmer, and then there's bald. So I thought that the bald option would be 000 or closest to it. Now further on, having used the metal clips, a 000 is really more of like, I guess, a 0 with the clipper. So like I think that it maybe because I skinned him out,
But the
that
difference between the two is so small that,
right.
you know, I could be wrong about this, but like in New York, it's no one says zero. No one says zero fade. Here, people
No,
say zero, they mean
skin
skin.
fade.
But in
Yeah.
New York, it's a skin fade. And then no one ever says zero. Like none of my clients, even walk-ins, nobody. So here,
No, it's
I
either a
yeah,
half
I
fade
ask them, I'll
or
say, when you
skin.
say zero, you mean skin, right? Like all the way skin. And then
Right.
if
Yeah, you got to
I
make
have a
sure.
fresh haircut, I'm like this.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, yeah. So, and then I try and correct them to say, just say skin fade instead of zero because
Right.
it is a little bit of stubble, but it's like, a day or two worth of growth. And if
Right.
you like clean it, then you might as well just go skin. You're not going to be able to really get a line on it, shape it up or anything. But
Yeah.
you
Well,
said something
so
happened recently though,
so
like
well,
today.
so recently, actually, it's funny because today was just one of those days where a walk-in comes in with that weird energy,
Yeah.
and
Who's the best in the shop?
yeah, there's always like those guys. Everybody knows those guys.
You do a taper?
Who's the best one? They walk in, you guys doing haircuts. It's like that shit kind of gets old.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just part of it. But yeah, so this guy walks in, and we always have guys that our shop runs primarily off of appointments. We use Booksy as a booking app. We do have a website. It directs you right to Booksy. So most people we urge to make an appointment. That's the best way to get with us. The owners of our shop, the one's booked out over a month. The other guy's booked out over 2 weeks, and then I'm booked out, weekly to 2 weeks. And then we have a newer guy that, has more time for walk-ins, but lately he's been very booked. So that's kind of how it works. So people walk in, they're like, do you take walk-ins? That's normally when somebody walks through the door, they greet you, you greet them, and you kind of figure out what's happening. This guy just walked in and sat down, which people do. They walk in and say, "What's up?" Sit down, which makes us think that, oh, it must be one of the other barber's appointments. So this guy sat down. We already knew the vibe. He didn't have an appointment. So the other guy goes, "Yo, do you have an appointment?" And he said, "No. do I need one? And we're like, hold on, let's check. Like we'll take walk-ins as long as we can jam them in somewhere in the schedule. So the newer guy, Kevin, um, he's been with us for a little over 6 months. But he was like, yeah, I can take him. He was on his lunch break. So Kevin comes out, and then the guy, Kevin's like, I'll take you. And then he proceeds to get ready for his haircut. So this guy walked in with just a backpack and he had headphones on, right? So he puts the backpack down on the bench and it's open and there's all all kinds of stuff
No,
overflowing out of his backpack,
it's bad.
right? It takes him like a full 3 minutes to take off his headphones. Now they're like the big headphones with a wire, and he has
Yeah.
it sneaks through his sweatshirt to his phone. So he's like trying to get it off and fumble it and pull it through. So he finally gets his headphones off. Then he pulls gloves out of his backpack, right? Not not like latex gloves, like gardening gloves that are like they're like, they're dipped in like the rubber.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so those they're like Rubbermaid gloves, right? So he puts the gloves on. Those are on. And then he has what looks like a clipboard. So that made me think like, oh, he must be like a canvasser, canvassing the neighborhood for whatever, windows, solar panels. And he must have walked here. And then like I start looking at it, it's not a clipboard. It's a piece like probably a 2 by 2 square piece of cardboard wrapped in cellophane. And he walks over to the chair, puts it on the chair, and then sits down on it.
No way.
I'm like, all right, this guy has like a germ thing. You know what I mean?
No way.
But it's kind of weird that he's wearing gardening gloves because those like I feel like they're not protecting you from germs, right?
No.
So then Kevin goes to put the cape on. He's like, no, 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 no cape, no cape.
No
I'm like,
way.
all right.
This,
So then he sits down, right? And he goes, I want to line up from here around the back to here. And that's it. We're like, ah, okay. So that's all you want. You don't want the front lined up. You don't want a haircut. None of it. He's like, no, just the lineup. He's like, I cut my own hair, but I can't see the back. We're like, okay.
oh,
So he goes, oh, right before Kevin starts to do the haircut, he goes, oh, how much is a lineup? And we no matter how much like work you want done, like a lineup is a lineup. You know what I mean? So normally 20 to 25. Kevin, charged. He's like, oh, $20. He goes, $20. And he like looks at him weird. He's like, well, yeah, that's like about as cheap as we can go. You know what I mean? Like that's the cheapest service that we have is a lineup. It's $20. And he goes, oh man, I only have like $4.
wow.
And Kevin's like, what? So he's like, I just want like the back. And Kevin's like, all right, you know what? Whatever. $4, fine. He's like, just sit back. Lines up the back of his head,
Okay.
no
Just one
cape. So
shirt.
this dude's
I'm
just
in there.
he's getting the hair all like in the shirt. He's got his gloves on. And then it literally takes what, 1 minute, 2 minutes to line just the back line of the neck. Dude gets up, like slowly walks over to the bench, puts all his stuff back in the backpack, and goes to leave. And Kevin's like, yo, and he looks at him and goes, "Oh, you need some form of payment?" And we're like, "What?" He's like, "You need some form of payment." And we're like, "Dude," Kevin literally goes, "Dude, what are you even talking about right now?" And he's like,
You try to
"You
not
need
get paid
cash?" And
$4.
we're like, "You know what, dude? Well, you have a nice day. Like,
Yeah.
you got what you wanted. Have a good one." And
Please don't come back.
it just wasn't worth dealing with it. And I said, he's probably coming back.
Yeah, that's like what's his name? Paulie. Remember Paulie?
Oh yeah, dude.
So Paulie was this loud mouth guy. He just would always talk and talk and talk. And one day he went to change the TV. Like he just went to change the channel on the TV, and we were watching something, and it was funny, right?
Yep.
It was a funny movie, man, and we were like halfway through, and this guy has the balls to just go and start trying to change the channel. I lost a little. I lost my composure a bit, but anyway, Paulie was an interesting guy because he was he was mean, man. He was like mean to his family, I feel like, right? Like he was talking to his wife in there one day. Anyway,
He
not to get
he
into it,
wasn't a nice guy for sure.
but he acted real nice. And anyway, he went to change the channel, and I remember saying like, dude, listen, man, there's boundaries. This is a business. Like, you don't just go into the doctor's office and start touching the TV. You don't just go to like get your oil changed and just start changing the TV because you don't like
Yep.
what's on the TV. This is a barbershop. We're watching comedy. It's a good vibe. You can't sense it, but you're actually killing it right now. Like you just killed the whole vibe. Now I got to cool off and everything. But you learn through those kind of situations.
Yeah. You kind of like, I mean, they're gonna come no matter what. You know what I mean? And the
Yeah,
and
it's just the
the
nature
the
of it.
kid the kid Kevin that took this guy, like not that he's newer, he's been in a shop for a couple years now, but he hasn't had too many of those experiences. So like it really gets under his skin. I'm like, dude, it's gonna keep happening.
Yeah,
Like you just learn to let it roll.
yeah,
It
those
is
are.
what it is.
I would say that's it right there. What's your strangest movie? That's kind
Yeah,
of
the straight. Well, so I mean, I have plenty of them.
yeah, a lot of strange moments. Now that I got
Oh,
those ones in my head, they're just standing right there. Oh, there you go. We just answered this question also. Well, I could be wrong. What was your worst client from the past? And then
worst client.
wrap it
So
up.
those, so that like, so I don't know how it works for you, but like for me, I don't consider somebody a client until after the third consecutive haircut. So like, I don't know. That guy was a walk-in. There's gonna be, I call them true walk-ins. They don't care who cuts their hair, as long as it's like an okay haircut, they're fine. Um, but like an actual client, somebody that I consistently cut, that, you know, I'll like either make time for, or, like it goes back and forth. So they start bringing you stuff and lunch and this and that, and like you kind of get close as clients. So like I've had a few bad ones of those that they start off as good clients, and then either something happened. I don't even know what happens, what causes somebody to just like start not showing up to appointments, or whichever way it goes. But I would say I don't know which one of them would be the worst client, but I literally don't remember his name, but he was one of your old clients. And I
Oh,
think I texted you about it. Yeah, because he started no showing, like no call, no show. And then when he would show up, it'd be like 20 minutes late, and 20 minutes late to an hour long appointment, that's I still run that hour-long appointments, 45 for a regular haircut, hour for a haircut beard.
yeah.
When you show up 20 minutes late to that, it's like, all right, now I have 40 minutes. I can kind of rush it and get you out.
Mhm.
But then he would start showing up, 30, 40 minutes late. And I was like, bro, I don't know what you want me to do at 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's no
Um,
can't
so
do
then, and I go through this process of like, I block a client from booking until they reached out to me, or I reach out to them and say like, hey, um, you know, you're late or not showing up to appointments. Like, if you're going to keep booking, I need you to make sure you're going to show up. You know what I mean? And in this case, um, I told him like one more shot, because he
that.
had done it so many times.